All right, folks, typically I don't end up doing these videos that are a pre-announcement of a stream that's coming. But the reason why I wanted to touch upon this Indie World Direct is because I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch it live. For those of you out of the loop, this Thursday, August 7th, we're going to end up having an Indie World Direct, which is basically a bunch of indie games coming to Nintendo Switch and so on and so forth. It says that it's going to end up being roughly 15 minutes of updates on indie games coming to Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. Maybe I'll be able to catch it live. We'll see. A couple things I wanted to talk about with this showcase. One is that I'm seeing a lot of people talking about how did this guy predict that there was an Indie World Direct? Check your calendars, because there was an Indie World Direct last year in August. I'm genuinely so sick and tired of these leakers getting like reputation from people, despite the fact that they don't know anything, they're just using common sense. But I guess let's be real, that's a higher IQ than the average person on the internet. None of you guys are too smart for that. I think it's also important for me to say, curb your expectations. Get them very, very low. Because that last partnership showcase, oh my God, so many people were saying it was awful. I actually thought that the showcase wasn't bad at all. I don't know what the hell people's expectations are. I guess they're just expecting the moon at this point. Like, the only thing that really surprised me was the lack of Elden Ring content at the partner showcase, but I guess that means that the game's coming later in the year. The thing is, people are actually like going psycho mode when it comes to their predictions and speculations, saying that this indie world is just part of Nintendo's big plan, where they're going to suddenly release like a bunch of other games or a bunch of other directs. My prediction is the next mainline Nintendo Direct is going to be in September. You want to know why? Because we had one September last year. It's not rocket science, it's just that Nintendo is very consistent with their showcases. The other thing people kind of keep doing to predict these like showcases and releases and stuff is they'll know, oh, Nintendo's having a meeting with their investors, so usually that's when they end up having these Nintendo Directs. It's no surprise that these showcases always seem to happen as we go into the next quarter of the year. Very suspicious, but not really. One last thing that I wanted to mention, because I don't think that it deserves its own separate video, is Metroid Prime 4. I know there's like me and one other fan out there. Jimmy, this is for you. I've been predicting and going crazy with the copium that Metroid Prime 4 would end up being a shadow drop at some point in this year. But the fact that we still haven't heard anything about the game's release date and it just keeps getting further and further along in the year is quite concerning. In fact, we actually do have some news relating to Metroid Prime 4 that is actually official and not speculation. So apparently here in Canada, in Toronto and Quebec, there's going to end up being a Nintendo like showcase type, like a con, right? Basically people will be able to play Mario Kart as well as a couple other new games coming to Switch like Elden Ring and Metroid Prime 4. Now, this is nothing new. We've already had these conventions prior to the Switch 2's launch where people could end up playing all of these games. I think Elden Ring's a new one, but the point being is that that convention is at the later portion of August. And in the topic where they mention the games that are going to be playable at that con, Metroid Prime 4 is still labeled as a 2025 release. The only reason that I'm bringing this up is because I saw somebody else make a prediction a couple months ago that Metroid Prime 4 might drop in August, because technically this is the anniversary month for Metroid. But it seems like that's not going to be the case, because if this con is going to have Metroid playable later in the month, then I think we're looking at September and onward, maybe even November, because we already know Pokemon is coming in October. But you never know, we do have Gamescom later in the month, so maybe they'll give us a release date then. Speaking of predictions, I wanted to bring this up. A couple months back, I noticed that the Switch 2 bundle that came with Mario Kart ended up having small text that said that the bundle ends in the fall, and that made me suspicious that we would end up getting a new bundle after the fall, and lo and behold, we've already got a Pokemon bundle. I didn't talk about any of this publicly because, you know, I don't like spreading false information, even if I was right. But I remember talking about a lot of this stuff with my cousin years ago when the Switch 2 was announced. We both basically said that if they wanted the console to be successful, they would launch it with the new Mario Kart and then have a bundle later that came with Pokemon. So, I don't know. I just thought it was a kind of cool, fun little fact that Nintendo is going this hard with their marketing. Oh, one other thing that I probably shouldn't bury in this video is, has your Nintendo Switch 2 been overheating even though it's docked and asleep? That's because there's an option if you have the console connected via a wired internet connection, where the system, even if it's asleep, is going to constantly be pinging the internet and checking for regular updates. To change this, you go into your system settings, select sleep mode, and disable the maintain wired connection in sleep mode. It has no side effects. The only difference is that maybe you pick up the Switch and suddenly it has to patch, rather than patching while it's asleep. But it runs a lot cooler while it's sitting in the goddamn dock. But let's finish this video up with my predictions for the Indie World Showcase. I'm assuming the big boy title they're gonna have at this showcase is gonna be something to do with Hades 2, whether it be the 1.0 release dropping that day or giving us a release date for it. It's kind of the big indie game a lot of people are waiting on outside of Silksong, which I think is going to get a release date from this showcase as well. That was a joke. And honestly, anything else from that point is just going to end up being ports. I would personally love to see Abiotic Factor coming to the Switch. I know that the devs are planning on that. My only real complaint with the Switch 2 right now is that there's a lot of games that I want to play that still don't have Switch 2 updates yet. But I'm hoping that we end up seeing some surprises that aren't just Switch 2 updates for various games. Because a lot of these indie games already run fine outside of maybe they're locked at 30 frames instead of 60. I don't know. But anyway, I hope that I can end up catching that showcase live just because I think it's going to be interesting, even though I think the internet is going to say, this sucked. I know this was a bit of a longer video for somebody that prides themselves on the fact that I give you guys as much information as quickly as possible, but this wasn't a 50-minute rant like everybody else's videos covering this shit. And on top of that, I just had a lot of Nintendo related stuff that I wanted to get off my chest with you guys. Still hoping and praying to hear anything about Metroid Prime 4.